Only in America can you be too poor for housing, but too free for the streets.
And individualism is the core of American freedom.
Do you want to know why there's no freedom in China? It's because in Chinese culture, freedom is not valued.
Americans prefer chaos as freedom. Chinese prefer stability as freedom. Well, free from government is the US version of freedom, because America was born out of an uprising from British oppression. The trauma of all Americans is too much control from the government. You know, America got independence in 1783, but they got the federal government 6 years later. They don't like government. The government can't be trusted. So own guns means remain the right to overthrow the government when it turns into evil.
Admittedly, compared to the United States, we cannot publicly advocate for overthrowing the ruling party because that is unconstitutional, and we cannot publicly insult the top 7 leaders. That's all. But if you really want to do that, you'd only need to spend a few tens of dollars to buy a VPN and go to foreign websites like TikTok and X. And you can freely say those words without anyone caring about you.
And individualism is the core of American freedom. You can be whoever you want to be, do whatever you want to do, and the whole society. Not on the top priority. Yeah, we all know Americans believe in American dreams. But what is the American dreams essentially? It's chaos.
Only in America can you be too poor for housing, but too free for the streets. So the Trump administration just announced that basically being homeless in DC is a crime. So if you're living on the streets, they're going to force you into shelters. And if you say, nah, I'm good, they just going to arrest you, throw you in jail, and put you in some type of treatment program that you didn't ask to be in. I just want to remind everybody, these are the same conservatives that always talk to you about freedom. But apparently that freedom doesn't cover your own body when you're pregnant. And apparently it doesn't cover your own body if you make a decision to live off the grid. It's hard enough being homeless, trying to survive, trying to eat, trying to stay safe. Now the rich and powerful are saying, oh, you can be homeless as long as I don't have to see you. 'Cause in their minds, if they don't see it, well, it doesn't exist. This is the America that loves to call itself great. Is this greatness? Really? A country so obsessed with controlling people instead of trying to figure out why we have a homeless issue? I don't know, like unaffordable housing, low enslaved wages, and lack of mental health care? You just sweep these people away like trash so they don't ruin your view when you're at brunch. And I can't help but notice these are the same people who call themselves Christians. That same Bible that says, help the poor, feed the hungry. Somehow y'all skipped that chapter and went straight to out of sight, out of mind. So let's be honest, y'all. This is not about safety. This is about security, about people who never grew up. Folks that never dealt with their own emptiness, so they get their power from oppressing other people. They'll wrap it in words like order and law and clean streets, but it's just cruelty with better PR. And America, I got some news for you. Y'all so scared we're gonna turn into a third world country because of immigration? Baby, look around. You're already there, beloved.
So, what freedoms do we have? Such as the freedom of not worrying about not being able to afford groceries, the freedom of not worrying about becoming homeless, the freedom of not being afraid to go to the hospital due to the high cost, and the freedom of not worrying about personal safety. If American friends want to have these freedoms, how many dollars do you need to spend?
And I bet you heard the saying, chaos is a ladder. Historically, when the American dreams are alive, the American continent is in chaos. Not so many oligarchs, not so many billionaires, not so many noble families, only indigenous Indians and bisons. But it's totally the opposite in China. The Chinese version of freedom means being free from chaos, not governance. Basically means Chinese people prefer stability.
Here, I wanted to make this video as a response to one of my previous videos about China being freer than America in many ways, like they don't pay any taxes.
Typical American. Y'all never gonna learn. Y'all just never going to learn. You are stuck in the matrix, and I'm gonna tell you why. Let me humble this man real quick. Okay, so he's saying, how are you paying zero taxes in a communist country? He thinks I'm lying. Did you know there's a tax law called the FEIE, Foreign Earned Income Exclusion, which means if you don't make over $126,000 per year in China, you are excluded from any type of taxes. I don't need to say too much. Just read. Ikra, read. By the way, the contracts are 1 year in China. And what does it say right here? You basically need to stay out of America for 1 year. Hello? Hello? Oh, okay. So I can go to China, make $4,000 a month with no bills, no expenses, no apartment, accommodation covered. I make $48,000 for the year, which means I'm saved by the FEIE. I didn't make over $126,000. Let me rephrase that. So that means you make $48,000 in 1 year in China with no rent, and it goes in your pocket. But you didn't make over $126,000, which means America can't tax you. Who do y'all want to listen to? Do y'all want to listen to people like this, or do you want to listen to people like me who actually have the real experience and the information? People like this don't know anything. And what baffles me is that you get taxed every damn day, every week, every month, every year, and you still don't understand your tax law. What a shame. What a shame. I don't talk for no reason. I'm not making these videos for no reason. I'm not making these videos for views. I'm spreading awareness. So you either going to wake up, surround yourself around people like me that are on the way to generational wealth and freedom, or you can just sit on TikTok and complain. I don't care what y'all do, because at the end of the day, I'm going to be the example. I'll make videos for y'all, but everything I tell y'all, I'm going to apply to my life. I don't talk for no reason. So at this point, I've told you everything. I told you rent. I told you how much food costs. I told you about jobs. I told you about how you don't have to pay taxes. What else do you want me to say to take action? If you don't take action, you're going to be complaining for the rest of your life.
China is a communist country. Oh, you can't make any money there. They don't pay Americans. The government is strict. The food is fake. Look what they did during COVID. They hate black people. They're racist. Propaganda. Shut up. You're in the matrix. You know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just saying this stuff to get views and likes, because I'm never going to go back to China. I'm going to live in America, but I'm just going to make these videos about China, scam people. To the point where I'll send people to China without them paying a dime for them to go work in China and get paid $3,000 or $4,000 a month. I'm basically going to scam all these people and try to force them to come back to America. That's really my plan. So yeah, I'm wrong. My fault. I'm wrong. Ignore this whole video. Like, don't even worry about this video. I might have to delete it. I'm about to go to sleep though. You don't have to pay taxes if you work in China, which means you can make $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month tax free. Let's say you make $3,000 a month in China. Your contract is 1 year, so you make $36,000 in 1 year. You don't have a house, you don't have a car, you don't need gas, you don't need insurance. And I even know some people that stop paying their phone bill when they overseas. Pretty much all of your daily expenses in America will vanish. Now you're making $3,000 a month, and that $3,000 is going directly in your pocket. Okay, so you made $36,000 for the year. Let's say you spent $6,000 of your salary the whole year. Maybe you had to travel, spend it on food or whatever. You still got $30K that you saved in a whole year. Tax free though. You're not paying any taxes on that money. How hard is it to save $30K in 1 year in America? Now, let's say you do that for 3 years. That's $90K. So in 3 years, you saved almost $100K. No bills, no expenses. If you go back home, your flight is covered. Summer vacation, you still get paid. And this is why I agree with people who tell you not to go to China, because it's not worth your time.
Why? Because Chinese believe in after stability comes prosperity.
Nansun Village in Shandong, China gave away free apartments again this year. Since 2009, they've been providing free apartments to eligible young adults via lottery. So far, they've given away 218 apartments, each about 100 square meters in size. To qualify, residents must meet 2 conditions. They must be registered villagers, and they need to be 22 years old. In 2025, 6 apartments were given away. But how can the village afford this? Rural China is not exactly rich. It turns out that Nansun has collective assets of over 2 billion yuan, and the people have a disposable income of 39,000 yuan, which is quite high for a rural area and almost as high as China's average disposable income of 40,000 yuan, which includes big cities. How did Nansun get richer than the average rural area? It was once poor, but in 2005, Li Fengde, a retired soldier and private entrepreneur, returned to serve as party branch secretary, and he established a village-owned enterprise, Shandong Guanghui Group. The group built 100,000 square meters of street-side commercial properties, generating over 20 million yuan in annual rental income. So this is where the money comes from. And this has generated a discussion among Chinese netizens on Douyin. Many users expressed envy. For example, user In said, "Same as always, either implement this nationwide or cancel it nationwide," because he wants this to be fair for everybody, not just that one town. Some were skeptical, like, is this real? Is this some kind of scam? But Shandong locals came on and vouched for its authenticity. There were also lots of jokes about the wording, especially the word 分房. And this word at first glance could mean to split up the house, like by divorce. But in this case, it means to distribute houses to people.
In Chinese, we say 安定繁荣 or 安居乐业. Again, why? Well, trace back to history again. First, ancient China was an agricultural country. We farm on the same place. We don't migrate a lot. Second, China has so much pain from anarchy. Everybody knows China has 5,000 years history. At the beginning of each dynasty, there was good governance, means stability. Also means prosperity. We all know how sweet good governance can deliver. In the country, late of each dynasty comes instability, warlords, farming, plague, etc. And during the century accumulation comes colonization and opium war. Totally in chaos. For example, during Japanese invasion in 1931 to 1945, China lost 50 million lives. That's how terrifying chaos can be. That's the trauma of China. I traveled around China in the last 10 years, interviewed numerous local people. They told me that every decade is like another century due to the fast pace of developing in China. It's like your grandparents' generation are barely eating or even slaves, but your parents' generation have decent jobs. And your generation have fancy cars or even yachts and private jets. So how can you not have stability? Because all of this prosperity based on stability. You know China didn't fight any war in nearly half a century, right? China put almost all the resources on building the country. If you search Safe China, you can find numerous videos from expats in China. They love it. They enjoy the nightlife in China. So in China, stability is a ladder and a safe. But what is the ladder exactly? Education and globalization. Stability means your future is predictable and achievable if you work hard. You only need to be qualified. In the ancient era, the latter is imperial competitive examination. In the modern day, it's education. Well, specifically, it's called 高考. Every politician in China knows the proverb. Stability is the first priority. So the Chinese version of freedom is based on stability. So this is the consensus of Chinese society. I just need to say one thing, that every student of China has to learn English. Normally, 10 years and beyond. More than 140 million Chinese knows English in different levels. Why? Preparing to hack globalization. Here, education means stability and expectation. Globalization means prosperity. The most culture shock here is both Chinese and Americans can't understand the mindset of each other. Now you know why, right? Because we've been through totally different miserable past. Chinese fear of anarchy, while Americans fear of governance. China loves stability, while America loves chaos. Funny thing is, both of them look down on each other. Why again? Because the people don't communicate with each other that much. And due to mainstream media and fake news, the cultural gap is getting wider. We all protect what we value the most. Based on our background, we never found aliens on this planet, right? We are just ordinary people. In short, freedom has different versions. It's not only democracy or free speech or protesting or something else. It's based on the history of the nation and the people themselves. Sometimes freedom is free from whatever is oppressing you. Sometimes freedom is free from whatever is holding you back from a brighter future. Sometimes freedom is just the tool that the evil politicians used to manipulate the voters. What is the most important thing here? The reality. If you live better, then it's freedom. Follow me. Let's do some real culture exchange, okay?
Do you want to know why there's no freedom in China? It's because in Chinese culture, freedom is not valued. Longevity and harmony and peace is valued. Hard working and the working life is valued. It's not about how much vacation you can take, it's about how much work you can do in your life. That's the greatest value. And I know it's hard to kind of understand because I think a lot of us, especially in the Western world, we like to kind of do nothing, enjoy life. And I do believe that is nice. But if you ever fall in love with something, if you ever feel like you found your calling, you don't do nothing. You do a lot. You work all the time for it. You're always doing something. And that says a lot. So, is there freedom in China? Of course. But what is freedom anyways? That's up to you to decide.